Okay, we will restart. There is one question. Karnaratna is asking that feedback cannot be seen. Of course, that is because there was a closing date which I opened up now. I think you should be able to see the feedback now. Even the previous ones, you should be able to see now feedback. Right? So those feedback you can use to improve. And other thing he asked is like what areas you can improve. One is the selected posture. Out of the postures given, you can choose a posture, or you can choose one or two postures and try to improve upon them. And also the practice will give you the improvements on the steadiness of the posture. And also any disturbances like flies and all, they will not be disturbances anymore once you practice a little bit. And of course, the facial expressions will tell us the mental state you are in. I think you already know that the mental state of yourself and mental state of others can be judged by facial expressions, posture, and all that. So that will be the areas you need to improve. But natural facial expression, right? You can't fake facial expressions because fakes will serve no purpose and will not give you any improvement as such. So those are the areas actually a meditator need to improve. One is among the disturbances, can the awareness or the mindfulness be maintained irrespective of the disturbances? So for example, some of us might think that heavy sounds will disturb our meditation, but not the mindfulness meditations, because you can exploit that sound to meditate. You can use that sound to meditate upon the ear. So nothing can be a disturbance to a mindfulness meditation, in fact. So how to tolerate disturbances and maintain mindfulness is the area that you need to improve upon. That comes only with the practice. Knowing the theory is not enough. So that's why the journal is implemented, so that you can keep a record of your own practice and see how you improve. Of course, the improvements are completely personal, and some of you may take a lot of time, some of you may take small time. Since the course is short, the people who can improve within a short time span will get more marks because of the short time duration of the course. Unfortunately, because in other departments, like in electrical department, mechanical department, when I conduct, they conduct the course over 14 weeks of short durations, like two-hour durations, whereas our department is little different here. Maybe with the new curriculum revision, it might change, I don't know. But yours is short because 4 hours are going at a stretch, and within 5 weeks in this short semester, we have to finish. That is the little issue I face because I know that the time is not fully sufficient for you to get a very significant improvement. But at the same time, I know that there are some of you who have very good meditating abilities. From your journals, I can see, from your postures and facial expressions and mental states, I can see that there are many of you who have that talent in you, and which means you can improve within a short time if you take an effort. So those are the comments I can add to that question by Karnaratna. I hope it will be sufficient. One more question is there. So why we need to consider on external presence of a phenomenon based on inferences. It was much harder to do in the last practical session. I agree. It is a bit harder to start with. I will explain why. The reason is that we want to mix with the nature. We are trying to be part of the nature and understand it. So that this hearing or whatever the phenomena is not limited to this area or not limited to me. It's a broad-based phenomena of the nature. That is the level of understanding we require. It's not only a level of understanding. Later on with practice, you will notice that this boundless or limitless experience of the mind gives you a lot more relaxation. And it's easy to drive the mind to absorption states or samadhi states with the limitless mental objects. In අපි ඒකට කියනවා පරිමිත අපරිමිත කියලා. දැන් පරිමිත නිමිත්තක් ගත්තොත් it is limited. There are certain mental objects which are limited in size or limited in presence, and therefore the concentration you can achieve with that kind of a mental object is also limited. But there are these infinite or boundless mental objects. The relaxation you can achieve, concentration you can achieve is much better. So we need to train our mind to move or shift from limited to limitless, limited to limitless. That is the idea of that part of the meditation. That's called aparimita nimitta. I think in engineering and the scientific background you all have got, you are trying to limit your mind to measurements. You want to measure everything, weigh everything, and limit everything to a measurable level. Whereas that's one ability. Okay, that's good, but that ability will not be enough for the mind to develop. You need both things. Like when you need, you should be able to concentrate on something bounded. When you need, when you wish, you should be able to concentrate on something boundless or limitless. Both abilities should be there in a developed mind. That is another way I can explain that that part of the meditation. Okay, still unable to see feedbacks on the journals. It is still in the restricted state. Oh, I will check on that. During the break, I disabled that restriction. Anyway, I will give me time after this lecture. I will work on that, right? And we'll make you see the feedback. Okay, thanks for all those questions and hope I clarified. Well, one more question is there. Let me answer that also. While doing sense faculties, how to differentiate between sensations and perceptions? I immediately go to perceptions. Okay, that's also a very good question. The reason being that especially in certain sense faculties like eye, ear, the mind is not really interested in pleasure there, because pleasure cannot be derived from that touch, but pleasure can be derived from a physical touch like this. Therefore, the mind is more interested in intense feelings. Therefore, these subtle feelings, neutral feelings, mind is not very interested. You need to train the mind. You need to train the mind as a meditator, especially on the neutral feelings. There are lots of neutral feelings. Actually, they are the neutral feelings are the ones which are present more than the other two. But since the mind is seeking the pleasure, it will disregard the neutral feeling. Therefore, training is required. That's one thing I can give as a comment. how to differentiate between sensations and perceptions. Sensations are basically feelings only. Perception is that sanya part, which is what you understand out of it. For example, if you consider physical touch here on your hand, suppose a smooth touch like this, smooth touch, the sensation is only the categorization of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Is this a pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, or a neutral feeling? Then perception is whether it is a rough touch or whether it is a light touch. Roughness, so the lightness of the touch is the perception. These are two different things. With practice, you should be able to differentiate the two. Right? Actually, they are heavily different. One is a perception, other is a sensation. Some sensations you can't change. For example, suppose somebody hits you here. The pain you can't change, physical pain. But the perception, the mental part, you can change. Mental part is changeable because it's part of the mind. Through mental exercises, perceptions, all perceptions can be changed. Sensations you can't change because they are physical, originating from physical touch. Okay. Right, hindrances, this important area we will discuss now. Quick reflections on your experiences. You can check, did I experience this way? Mind does not concentrate on a selected good thought or a meditation thought, although you tried your best. You might have experienced that happening at certain instances. Why? Some other experience, if you check. Mind will not calm down or settle down, however hard you try at certain times. Why? Another experience. Ever experienced the mind being unhappy when you are alone, although you want to be happy? Okay. Coupled with your personal experience, I am sure you might have certain personal experience on this. And why is that? So there are lots of experiences like this. Unless you carefully examine, you will not be able to understand why is this, why is it happening. The reasons are hindrances, certain mental factors known as hindrances. So the culprit for this kind of experiences, culprits are hindrances. So what are they? What are the hindrances? Why are they called hindrances? How do I identify hindrances in my mind? So those are the questions that we need to search answers for at this moment. Okay. This is how we can understand them or define them. These are special mental qualities that hinder the progress towards concentration in meditation. Concentration means samadhi. Samadhi, single pointedness of the mind on the meditation thought. There are certain mental qualities that hinder the progress, your progress of achieving concentration. And they are called hindrances. So they are troublesome actually, they are enemies for the meditator. Right? They block or they prevent us from experiencing the inner happiness available in our mind. That means we have to choose between hindrances and inner happiness. You can't have both together. You have to let go of one of those to get the other. So let us analyze this. Okay, what are these factors which really block my inner happiness? That's how you need to investigate. It's called a five forces model. There are five hindrances. The Pali word for hindrance is nivarana. It's known as nivarana, and there are five of them. So we consider it as five forces model of the hindrances. Actually, they are the mental qualities that pull the mind away from the restful state. So if more we become aware of them, more we will be able to uh, control those factors and get away from them. That is the idea of this discussion. One is sensory desires. I think some of these I already mentioned to you. Sensual desires. Some people call them sensory desires. That means going after the colors you like, sounds you like, and tastes you like, and well, basically the five inputs you crave for more. And some people crave so much that they are even ready to do illegal, unacceptable things to gratify their sensual desires. I'm sure you don't belong to that category, but when these sensual desires are overdriving, it's restless. The mind gets really restless, and the concentration will be broken. Aversion, we have already discussed a lot about it. Sloth and torpor I will introduce in a moment. Just the word now. Fourth one is called worry and restlessness. Actually, two things together there. Fifth hindrance is known as skeptical doubt. These are the five forces which will pull the mind out of its concentration state. Therefore, we need to curb them, arrest them, and get rid of them in order to improve our concentration. So although there are five actually, there are factor-wise, there are seven because this is two factors here. There are two here, although they look similar, slight differences are there. So altogether, seven distinct mental qualities are there under five categories. Well, you want to ask a question? I don't see a question. I only see the first part. Maybe you are typing. Okay, I'll give you more time. Okay, putting them back into our model, these factors, hindrances, are neither inputs nor the outputs. These are inputs we already know. These are outputs we know that. These mental factors are completely internal to the mind. Perceptions are internal to the mind, and they pull the state of the mind from one to the other. Therefore, they are actually internal forces of the mind that drive the mind mental state from one to the other. Right? They are driving forces. You know how forceful sensory desires can become. You know how forceful your anger can become. Therefore, these five are very forceful. They can pull mental state strongly out of concentration. Now I can see the question. I will read it for the others. So can we measure our heart rate or pulse to see how well we are meditating? I have seen when I sleep, our heart rate slows down to 40 to 54 BPM. This is not related to this lesson, but the question I got, I think it's related to this lesson. It's a very good question also. It's related. Meditative state can be predicted by using the heart rate. Especially sleep is heavily analyzed using that but nowadays you get these apps like Weltery. I think you can install that kind of app, Weltery, in your phone, and you can use that. You can give data to the app, and app will tell you certain information about your mind. But these apps are, I mean, partial. They can't give you the full analysis because these relationships are not fully known. So certain algorithms are there in order to predict, and there are apps which use, and Welter is a good one. I have tried that, and it gives certain predictions. So in future, maybe there is more research going on in this area now, using heart rate and heart rate variability, and also EEG to predict the mental state of the meditators. One final year project of the 15 batch is to predict the mental state of meditators using EEG. You can get hold of that report in order to study more. So there are relationships of physical parameters to mental state, but heavily research area, still the relationships are not fully known. Of course, heart rate is related. Heart rate variability is a better indication for that. So there are enough literature in the web. You can read about it. I will upload. Maybe I uploaded some time back some findings of Vineet and Mithuncha. I think that document must be there in the model. You can read that also. They did a lot of work about this heart rate variability part during the training. They can be carried out to research level or finally a project level, right? Because these are new areas coming up. Okay, it's a very good question. Okay, coming back to this. I already mentioned that these are very forceful. That's why we call them 5 forces. 5 hindrances are actually 5 forces of the mind. Let us take a closer look on each hindrance. First one. These are the name. This is the name, technical name. Passionate sensory desires. Sometimes known as sensuous lust. Sensuous lust. I already introduced that word to you. This is that particular type of wanting you feel in the mind to seek for happiness through the 5 senses of sight, sound, smell, taste, and physical feelings. You want to seek happiness from those, and it's a drive you feel, a wanting, and that drive level can vary up and down, during a day. It will, sometimes it's very hard driving, sometimes light wanting, but I'm sure we all have felt this wanting. That is called sensuous lust or passionate sensory desires. One of very forceful hindrance. So forceful that it can completely ruin your concentration. Samadhi state will be completely ruined by sensory desires. So because you have now decided, when you get sensory desire, you have decided to seek happiness from outside. So automatically inner happiness is given up. Because you seek it out there, you give up seeking it inside. Therefore, that inner happiness is gone. It is out of your choice now, because you chose to go out to seek happiness. Right? That's how to understand it. Second one, There are analogies. Let me give one. Like this sensual drive, an analogy I can give is that suppose your mind is like a water pond. We want it to be clear water, beautiful water pond, but sometimes it may get mixed with dye, a different color. So that dye is the sensual desire in the analogy, right? There are other analogies coming for each one. I will explain at the correct point. So if the clarity or the beauty of the water in the pond is affected by a dye, different color, then it's analogous to the sensual drive or sensual desire taking over the control of the mind. Okay, second hindrance, aversion, ill will, the anger, resentments, and sorrow, fear, they all belong to aversion. We discussed already under metta meditation. We can define like this, all kinds of thought related to wanting to reject. They are actually feelings of hostility, resentment, hatred, bitterness. These words describe that. Even the sorrow, bitterness is coupled with the sorrow. You want to reject all this. You want to move away from this. And that feeling is the aversion. And these are two extreme sides. You can see sensual lust on one side, aversion on the other side. They are oppositely pulling strong forces on the mind. I think you can easily guess. Aversion is the force which leads to which mental state. Now you know the mental states. Which mental state? This is the force which leads to hostile mental state. Whereas the sensual lust, hindrance number one, is the force that leads the mind to which mental state? Lustful mental state. So you can clearly see these are forces that give rise to those mental states we discussed earlier. Analogy. It's like the water in the pond or water in a container is boiling. So the surface is not clear anymore and affected by heat. It's like the aversion affecting the water. Okay. Remember these analogies because analogies are easy to remember. What is happening inside the mind, you can compare with something you have seen outside the mind, and remember it. Okay. Sloth and torpor. Which is heaviness of the body, that is sloth, and torpor means dullness of the mind, which induce inertia to the thinking process. So you feel sleepy, you feel lazy, lethargy when these things set in. Sloth is actually the heaviness of the mind. The mind itself don't want to think. Torpor is heaviness or laziness of the thoughts. This is about the mind. This is about the thoughts. Mind can get lazy. Thoughts can get lazy. They are together in the thinking process. Therefore, overall thinking process will slow down, and you might not feel any drive, or you might even feel asleep, and that is ruining the concentration again. So it's a hindrance. Number three, analogous to the water surface of the pond covered with algae. Sloth and torpor is similar, analogous to the water of the pond covered with algae. The pond is our mind. Water is our thoughts, right? So compare like that and understand, right? You know, algae is coming when the water is still or not moving. Same way, the mental process will have laziness set in. That's the sloth and torpor condition. Fourth hindrance, worry and restlessness. Why they are together is because these are actually time bound. Worries usually come when your mind dwells in the past. When your mind dwells in the past, there will be certain worries. Restlessness will come when you think of the future because you are not sure what's going to happen. Nobody is sure what's going to happen. Therefore, when you think too much of the future, restlessness will occur. Therefore, these are time-bound things. That's why they are coupled together. Definition is worry and restlessness is defined as inability to calm the mind. Worries come from past experiences. Restlessness come from thinking about the future. Both ways, you are unable to calm the mind. That's why in the mindfulness, you are requested always to focus on the present moment. Worry and restlessness will be immediately gone the moment the mind captures the present moment. Fifth one, before that, the analogy is it's like the water surface of the pond stirred by the wind. So that steadiness or calmness is disturbed in the water. Hope you are remembering these analogies, right? I will summarize again, right? Fifth one, skeptical doubt. Skeptical doubt is lack of conviction or trust. So sometimes when you meditate, you are not convinced about it, that there is a mental state called inner happiness. There is some samadhi state that you can achieve. You are not convinced. You don't trust it. And that itself is a very forceful hindrance for the concentration. That's called skeptical doubt. Because you are not sure. You are not sure whether others are there who have achieved it. And even if you believe in that, you are still not sure whether you can achieve it. That kind of doubt is very harmful for a meditator. So, analogous to, with respect to the pond or the water surface, doubt is analogous to this. The water in the pond is muddy and dark. Okay. Muddy and dark water is analogous to skeptical doubt hanging on in the mind. So in summary, what about the mind being lustful or sensual lust? Sensual lust is like mixing the water with a dye of different color. Then aversion is like boiling water. Then sloth and torpor is like algae sitting on the surface. Then next one was worry and restlessness is water surface stirred with wind. And the fifth one, skeptical doubt, is water surface. The whole water is muddy and the color is very dark. That way, the pond equivalent is the mind actually. You can easily remember the effect of these 5 hindrances. Sir, I have a question about restlessness. Uh, I will read this. I normally like to plan ahead a lot lot of the time, and I do it most of the time while doing day-to-day work. But sometimes it comes as a hindrance to become restless. What would be your suggestion to plan ahead about projects and leadership uh, to take a separate time for planning? Exactly. You need to take a separate time for planning. I think you have the solution in the question itself. You plan purposely, allocate a time for that, and be aware that you are planning, be aware that you are thinking at present about the future, right? So your awareness is the present moment thinking, that is awareness. But your thoughts are about the future. So you are aware that your thoughts are about the future, but you are thinking now, and have a separate planning time. That's really good. But it is only initially, but once you practice the mindfulness, uh, you can do planning on the go, being mindful that you are thinking now. You are not thinking the future, right? You are thinking now, thinking that you are thinking of the future. That is the reality happening. You can't think in future, right? You are thinking now. So that awareness must be there at any time you do make a plan. So my suggestion is also have a separate time allocated for planning. That's really good. And then be mindful about the mental state and be mindful about the thought process happening right now while you are thinking of the future. Right. Okay, so 5 analogies I think will be useful for you to remember, understand and remember. If I summarize, uh, passionate sensory desire or sensual lust is that wanting or that drive for the seeking of happiness outside. Aversion, all kind of wanting to reject or run away. That is hostility, resentments, bitterness, sadness, hatred, everything. Sloth and torpor means you are too lazy in the thinking process. Restless and worry means you are actually overdriving the mind to past and future. Therefore, you are unable to calm the mind. Because here, what I mentioned earlier related to that question you asked is inability to calm the mind because you are not aware that you are thinking right now at this moment. Although the thoughts seem to be in the future, instead you want to be absorbed into the future. You want to take your thinking process also to the future and visualize. That is why the inability to calm the mind happens. Otherwise, planning can be done with full calmness of the mind. Right? This calmness of the mind and doing future planning are two different things. Calmness of the mind you can achieve and use it for future planning as well. Skeptical doubt, lack of conviction of yourself, your abilities. Right, coming back to this, the 5 hindrances you can put into a diagram like this. They are pulling, and as a result of each one, the mind will move to the mental states. Remember, there were 5 mental states. Now there seems to be 5 pulling factors. So you can match each mental state to each of these pulling factors. Already I introduced 2, lustful and hostile. Sloth and torpor is pulling the mind to the contracted state. Worry and restlessness is pulling the mind to distracted state. This doubt, skeptical doubt, is pulling the mind to deluded state. So that's how the 5 states are related to the 5 hindrances. You can see hindrances are the driving forces for the transition of the mental state from one state to another. Hope it is more clear now with this picture. Sensory desires will drive to lustful state, aversion to hostile, sloth and torpor to contracted, worry and restlessness to distracted state, doubt to deluded state. And can you look at a person, or can you look at yourself from the mirror and identify what state of the mind is there? Am I distracted now? Or am I contracted? Am I having a contracted mind? Am I having a hostile mind now? Likewise, or can you look at the facial expressions of someone else and judge? When you meditate, you will slowly be able to do these things. Okay. Right. The meditation is then awareness of the hindrance when it occurs at that present moment. This technique of just bare awareness of the presence of a hindrance is a way of turning obstacles such as hindrances to meditation objects. Hindrances are normally bad, but when you become mindful of the hindrance, you are exploiting the hindrance for meditation. Therefore, the hindrance will lose its force. The meditation thought will be more forceful. That's how it happens. When there is a thief, right? When there is a thief entering your premises, so the moment you see him, he loses all his ability to do a robbery, isn't it? Same way, when a hindrance is creeping into your mind, the moment you see it, if you are mindful of the hindrance, then the hindrance will lose its force, its ability to hijack the state of your mind. So hindrances are like thieves, for example. Contemplation, you can slowly train your mind to monitor the rising of a hindrance and monitor the passing away of the hindrance. And the second stage is you can be aware of what are the causes of each hindrance. Well, for example, if you consider the lustful mental state, the simple cause is that the mind is hooked onto an attractive mental image or mental formation. Right? When the mind is hooked to this attractive mental image or formation, there will be unwise attention to this mental formation, resulting in passionate sensual desire in the mind. So the causes are, main cause is this attractive mental formation. Attractive is with respect to your judgment, right? Coupled with unwise attention. Then an annoying mental formation, again based on your judgment, it could be annoying. It may not be annoying to everybody. An annoying mental formation coupled with unwise attention to it leads to the aversion in the mind. Likewise, you can uncover the causes for every hindrance. These are the causes for a hindrance. Of course, these driving forces are always there. They are very hidden in the mind, but they are present. Plus, as I mentioned earlier, relevant mental image with unwise attention. Relevant mental image means if it is aversion, relevant one is an annoying mental image here. Annoying mental image. If it is a lustful one, then it is a beautiful or something you like, that kind of a mental image plus unwise attention to it, leading to mental volitions on that, the hindrance will arise inside the mind. Force will become higher. Hindrance force will become will be taking over the mind. And when any of these decaying or vanishing, say mental volition is over, or this unwise attention is over, hindrance will fade away. So hindrance arise due to these causes, and they fade away when any one of these causes vanish. Okay, time for our next break. We'll have 10 minutes break and meet again.